So we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you to each of you for being here. Just by way of a quick introduction, my name is Alex Arndt, and I am on the integration team working towards this Nurses and Nurse Practitioners of BC that we're here to speak with you about today. I do want to acknowledge that we are holding this webinar on the territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. By way of just some brief housekeeping before we get started, those of you on the phone, on the line listening to us and who are seeing the screen right now, you'll see the first slide on your screen. This is a true webinar in that you can hear us, but we can't hear you by voice. You will see on your screen kind of a long box that's appeared on the right side of your screen probably. And there are some question options there. You can type your questions in. We will save lots of time at the end of this to be sure that we can take your questions. As you've gathered, we're very much definitely still in a consultation phase around nurses and nurse practitioners of BC, and these webinars are an opportunity for us to be able to provide some information and to be able to hear from you as well. So I will also just say that this webinar is being recorded, and then we will be able to post the webinar on the NNPBC website over the next couple of days once it's finished rendering. So with that, I will pass to Anita Dixon, who is the president of the Licensed Practical Nurses Association of BC, who will be driving this webinar along with her colleagues and who will introduce herself and those on the line with us. Over to you, Anita.
Perfect. Thank you. So welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to be holding this webinar for on behalf of the BC Coalition as we're moving towards the Nurses and Nurse Practitioners of BC. We also have two other board members that I just wanted to first acknowledge that Michael Young will be, who's the second vice president, will be speaking, and Brenda Childs, who's our treasurer, she'll be speaking. We had just a last minute regrets from Jennifer Gill, who's our first vice. She was also going to be on this telecast, and she had a family emergency. So you'll have at least the three of the five board members, and Leah Thompson, who's our secretary, is not available today. So I wanted to just, as you see the first slide that's in front of you, you have, if you've not heard of Michael Villeneuve, he is the current CEO of CNA. I want to start off with his quote as our first introductory as we're moving forward, because there's a lot of historical movement besides British Columbia, which we will focus on, even at a national level, that the CNA board has unanimously passed a resolution to move forward to unify all nurses together. So I wanted to bring that forward, to us, because specifically for licensed practical nurses, we're not currently, but we will. We're looking forward to the excitement at the AGM that's coming up in June, and I will be attending. I've attended all the AGMs for the last 8 years. So this one's going to be revolutionary. So I just wanted to let you know that even for Mr. Villeneuve, he's definitely supportive of us as we're going forward. Next slide. Barb Shellyan, she came to meet with us as well as Michael with the coalition back in October to welcome the concept of moving forward to being one true nursing organization. She was lovely. She's from actually Alberta. She has been also extremely supportive. And as you can see from the quote is that history happens in the moment. And we are definitely doing a lot of historical movements to demonstrate to all of the public that we as nurses are one and that we want to unify and come together. And she was very much supportive for licensed practical nurses, as coming from Alberta, as we all know, has been very welcoming of the inclusion at multiple levels for LPNs. Okay, next slide.
Hello?
Michael, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It's slide 4, am I correct?
Yep.
Okay, so we met 3 times with Mr. David Byers as the association. And this quote is very thoughtful and well researched, where that there is some worth in nurses being in the same association, and that there should be, as I believe, a separation of church and state between the nursing regulatory bodies, nursing associations, and nursing bargaining association. They all do a service to nursing generally, and to the union and non-union sectors of nursing. And I'm just going to go to the next slide, which really outlays the separation, where the regulatory body, college, professional association, and union all have a place to play, one in working conditions, another one in our identity, and the regulatory, and also the association also takes part in research and facilitating that. And the regulatory body does our scope of practice and does our licensing and all that. So there's very distinct areas of different concern. And what this is different, and what it does, in my belief, to nursing, is that anything that increases our identity as nurses is very worthwhile to the body of nursing. And for us to not have a professional association is kind of shooting ourselves in the foot, because at the end of the day, what's a nurse? And any organization that's out there telling the general public, this is a nurse, and this is what a nurse means. It's not a trade. It's not a set of tasks. It's actually a skill. It's an art. It's a conglomeration of cognition and skills, and identifying what nursing is. And for us, that's very, very important going forward, making sure that we have an identity. And the associations help do that. And that's all I have to say on the three different pillars. And I guess it's off to slide 6 now.
Yes. So I wanted to bring back, so I wanted to bring back the two more quotes from two people that are extremely supportive of the moving forward and going forward. So the first quote, again, is from Michael Villeneuve, is from the recent publication of the CNA magazine. And he's stating here that he wants to strengthen Canadian nursing and that he needs to pursue, and he is committed to pursuing it. He's met with us several times. I have met with him one-on-one. I actually attended last year to their AGM and spoke to him, directly, that he's inviting the licensed practical nurses and the psychiatric nurses to be members of the organization, the association. Then you look at David Byers, and his quote is stating here is that for licensed practical nurses, registered nurses, and psychiatrists, all express a desire to support patients in primary community settings and to help supporting their health system goals. What I really liked about when I met with, both of, as ongoing, is that CNA has been committed, and I know a lot of licensed practical nurses are not aware, but we have been meeting for over 2 years with CNA, talking about certification process, and he is committed. He has publicly committed that they put aside funds to develop certification for LPNs for underneath, and the first one is gerontology. That excitement alone is to see at our national level and to bring it back into our provincial level is so exciting, that will help support the goal of Mr. Byers or Dr. Byers in his patient's primary community setting, because we know by statistics, which was just presented recently, is statistically in British Columbia, we have the least amount of LPNs working in the primary and community care settings across all of Canada, and even going to the eastern provinces. So we have a lot of good work that needs to be done, and that LPN-ABC has been advocating, and we wanted to move that forward. Okay, next slide. So I wanted to now just give, if you wanted to have some background, is that how this came to be. So in British Columbia back in 2013, the nurse practitioners were actually, they were legislated, they were formed in 2005 underneath the Health Professions Act, but really were struggling by 2013. And even the ministry was trying to see, what was their optimization? They were into a crisis of who are the nurse practitioners, especially with the dissolution of the nursing directorate, who was no longer that voice up for nurses at the ministry level. So the nurse practitioners came and formed with the RN Association to have what they called the BC Primary Care Nursing Coalition, which was the very beginning of the epicenter for how we wanted to move things forward. Go to the next slide. So in 2014, we were invited, and that would be for LPN-ABC, and before, because RPN-BC did not form until the end of 2014, is that we were invited to come as a coalition for the very first time. We went to Victoria for Legislation Day during Nurses Week and met with Honorable Terry Lake, who you can see in this photo is holding the declaration, which was the proclamation of Nurses Day for all nurses. And this was the beginning of us coming together. And I have to say, it was one of those revolutionary moments when we had 2 representatives from every organization that went into a private meeting with Mr. Lake. And his very first question that he put to us, because hearing that all of us were going to be coming and sitting around the table, is he asked about, what do you think about having one college, having one nursing college? And we were all going, yeah, we think this is a great idea. This is wonderful. We're coming together as all the associations, and to have all nursing sitting at the same table was, for the ministry, historical making, because they didn't feel that we could all be sitting at the same table. So in 2014, that's when we said, this is what we need to move forward, and we started to optimize and call ourselves the coalition. We'll go to the next slide. So in 2015, we asked again to come back to the legislature. We brought forward, because at that point, there was now that the ministry was asking for the colleges to form as one. We were, of course, supportive of that movement going forward. In April, we talked to all of the CNOs. The coalition team came together, and we had all the CNOs. We had ministry representatives from the regulatory sector, from the Director of Regulations. And then we said that we do want all colleges to move together. That was, again, where LPN-ABC, if I can step aside and then just put for what we continue to do, is we advocated for our college to join, because there was a pause in whether or not CLPNBC was going to join at that point in time. And we actually went to CLPNBC and also to the government and said that this needs to be as one. We saw the benefit as being one coalition, so we moved it forward. And then we had a policy forum, which was so successful, is to invite all the government and representatives and from Frontline, and we held our policy forum to talk about what can we do together, all as one, coming from all different points of practice. We'll go to the next slide.
So then we come to the point where the coalition began to become formalized. The relationship with the Ministry of Health and the employees that work under the minister began to have dialogue with the coalition. All 3 regulators came together, and the CNOs also came together. So it was pretty groundbreaking. The regulators joined us. That was the first meeting where we explicitly shared with the 3 regulators our desire for them to amalgamate into one college for the benefit of the profession, feeling that it would allay some of the confusion between the different scopes and what each nurse is able to do at the bedside. In April, we met with senior ministry staff, all 3 regulators and the chief nursing officers, to discuss the road forward for the coalition and to talk about one college and where things are going. Then in May, we had our 3rd day at the legislature with our biggest mix of nursing professionals and students ever. Some other things that were worked on throughout the year of 2016 were an opioid forum, which was well received, and some projects came out of that. Great response to that. The coalition was formalized under the Societies Act, and a memorandum of understanding was signed. Next slide. So here is just a demonstration of what our initial website looked like and how we came together, what the vision was going to be. all nurses equally represented at the table. So the terms of reference, which you can read on the website, are laid out very easy to read. A number of things you would normally find in terms of reference, such as meeting frequency, confidentiality, etc. More notably, though, it established the board of the organization, and it was very lost my words, sorry. They decided each of the 5 member groups would have the right to appoint 3 representatives. So it would be very equal. It was a very intentional move so that just because one organization would have a larger number of members or feet on the ground, they would not have more power at a table where you're discussing concerns. In most cases, it's a combination of board executive positions, such as a president-elect, a vice president, etc. Our representation currently is the president, the vice president, and the treasurer. We absolutely had to ensure that we had equal representation regardless of how many individuals are part of one profession in BC. So again, just because one organization is bigger than the other, they don't have the ability to overpower a discussion or a decision-making process. All parties are considered equal. This was specific, it was intentional. We wanted to ensure that all voices were equal, no one profession was left behind or felt excluded from the discussion. The beauty of this model has proven itself over time. The connections between professions that may not ever have encountered one another is profound. For instance, as LPNABC, we did not have the, we don't very often have the ability or have the opportunity to sit at a table with nurse practitioners. And when we did, we found that we had the very same concerns that they did. And it was a eye-opening moment, aha moment for both of us to realize that the concerns that we brought to the table were also similar to other organizations, such as the nurse practitioners and even the psychiatric nurses as well. This model ensures that issues are heard, and our constitution and bylaws were birthed out of the terms of reference. And for the most part, we remain true to what is in this original document. And that brings us to today. So we sit at a table, we meet monthly. There's a few working groups that have broken away to work on projects, and they come back and report back, and every member at the table has an equal voice to speak to the concerns which are brought to the table. We also still regularly are in contact with Dr. David Byers, the Policy Secretariat, and other stakeholders such as the colleges and the educators. Anita, go ahead.
Okay. Next slide. So here's getting more details about what the moving forward is, and things that we are certain of. Is that BC is on the leading edge of change. The world is watching us, and that is, I can absolutely herald that with such great confidence because of the different forums, sitting. I've been at working groups with CNA. I currently still sit at what they call the network specialty group, and I'm one of the advisory boards, and they talk about British Columbia and watching us. I speak to other organizations across Canada, to Nova Scotia and to New Brunswick and Ontario, and I know that they are watching us. I know that there is movement going forward from all the other provinces. As we know, Nova Scotia is also moving towards one college, and that they will be established as of January 2019. So we know this is something that we, I was going to say the province for sure, the country definitely is wanting to come together. It makes sense to us to be coming together, as we've seen it in other entities, and so we are doing it as well. We see it in our regulatory, we've seen it in our union, and now we're seeing it through our associations. We're moving this one forward. We need to be collaborative because we need to be one voice, which we're still not through advocacy. We are in other venues, but advocacy is a very strong need to be able to come forward. Our stakeholders, being government and the regulators and other entities such as CNA, need to hear from all of the nurses together having different meetings, and I have to say through my journey as being in different roles through the association and other forums, is that when the government was meeting just with the licensed practical nurses, then meeting with the registered nurses, they would be then having this diversity. But when we sit all together in one, it has been an amazing exchange, and the similarities of some of our challenges far outweigh any of the differences that we may have experienced in what we can. So that has been an absolute journey. To be able to merge the college together as one has been a wonderful move forward. And as we know, the other provinces, Ontario has always been one, and that we have now Nova Scotia, and we will be there by the end of this year. We have CNA who is intending. We also have other entities such as the liability insurance is also going to be passing legislation to be moving to cover licensed practical nurses and psychiatric nurses as well. So we see other entities saying we need to be inclusive of all nurses, not just registered nurses and nurse practitioners. So I'm very, very excited about having, as we're moving forward, this has been something that we've all journeyed together, and that, just as we have been, excited about going forward, there's also some things that we need to be able to talk about strengthening our voice. This has been our guiding principles as we've been going through, and if there is anything that you do not see as our observers, that's the reason why we're holding the webinars and the consultations going forward, is that we want to be able to have your voice as well. So at the end of this, I invite for you that if you don't see anything as a part that is not reflective of what we should, please, I want to invite you in that. We want to be the voice of all nurses. We want to recognize the value of innovation, be strategic in our actions, and then trust each other and in the process. We want to be the catalyst for change, and we recognize that equality and inclusiveness are what's leading us to our success. But we also want to acknowledge, and we will talk more about the autonomy, because that's been some of the pieces that we're hearing, and we will touch on that more, that we want to also acknowledge and recognize. Okay, next slide. And so now for our landscape, we want to bring back again 2 more quotes that I just want to quickly, I actually want to acknowledge Dr. David Byers is the Nursing Policy Secretary, will support the amalgamation of the Provincial Nursing Association into one single nursing association. We know that his recommendations, which has just been released just recently, has been very clear in his going forward. He did his consultation across the province of BC, and as we saw in a previous quote, that there was definitely a huge support at the government level for us to be going as one, and which we will be moving forward. And then CNA also sees that support as well. Okay. And now I just lost track of where I'm at. 17. Since we had to change up the script, I just wanted to make sure I'm not going. So our name, we talked about our name being the BC Coalition of Nurses, Nursing Associations, which was our name that we established in 2014 going into 2015, which is our current. As we move forward, our new name, and I want you, everyone who's on the phone, or if you're speaking to another colleague who would like to listen to this webinar afterwards, please invite them to do so. This was a journey. It took a lot of conversation and respectful conversation and recognizing, for all. We did land on this, and we're still continuing. We will be committed to this name, but it's something that we will come back to in the next couple of years. It's not something that we will absolutely say we'll never look at it, but we're asking everyone to know that it took a lot for us to get here, and that we will be asking as people carry forward. So that's another question. We would love to field that at the end. So it's nurses and nurse practitioners. It's recognizing that in the regulation for nurse practitioners, underneath CRNBC, is that they cannot register as a registered nurse. They specifically have to register as nurse practitioners. So that was the rationale behind the nurses and nurse practitioners of BC. But would love to hear from you for that. Okay, next slide. And then for this structure, I just wanted, as I speak, just to kind of take, the visual concept in. is currently right now, Brenda described about how we're sitting. We have 3 representatives. As we go forward, we're going to be taking, so if you look over on your right-hand side, the circle that says LPN Council, that will be LPN ABC by the end of this year. So our goal is to amalgamate and then translate and move us forward from being a autonomous association underneath the Society Act to be an LPN Council. So the maintaining, and we'll like to talk more because we will be having our AGM coming up, is the council structure is up to us, how we want to do. We will be having our terms of reference. LPN ABC board has been working on terms of reference as we move forward. The commitment to the bigger organization is that we will elect out of our council 2 representatives to sit at the bigger table. So as you move around, going from the LPN Council and going around counterclockwise, you'll see that every single council for the nursing representatives is 2. We maintain the equality that doesn't matter what the numbers are, is that there will be 2 representatives for each of the organizations. And we will all commit to that we're translating into a council. The NNPBC, which is the educator group, they currently right now have 3. They're going down to 1 representatives on there. They're already a council, so there was no change for them. We will be looking to getting a public representative, so that's something that's new. We're also going to be bringing a student representative. That is not new to ARNBC, but it will be new to this organization because it will be open to any student representative. It could be licensed practical nurse, it could be psychiatric nurse, it could be RN, it could be nurse practitioner. Any one of them, and we'll have 1 student rep there. And then the Indigenous nursing representative, I just wanted to pause because that's also new. But where that representative is going to come from is from a representative from the council. So when we hold our AGM on March the 26th, we will be introducing a new board member position. It will be Indigenous. And so that Indigenous person will be the representative, and that we will, out of each of the councils will have 1 Indigenous rep. Out of those 4, I hope I'm clear enough in how I describe this. Out of the 4, there will be 1 person elected to be that 1 person on the NNPBC. So if you have any questions on that structure, it's simple but complex at the same time. But that's our structure as we're going to go forward for that. Okay, next slide.
So as Anita alluded to, we will be changing our structure from the current board structure to the council. And the council will remain somewhat autonomous in that LPN business will be directed by LPNs. So that speaks to the first point, that we would be representing and advocating for the interests of our own designation. We will be held to elections every year, just as we always have been. Our new thing, like Anita said, is to have 1 Indigenous nursing representative. So that's exciting, and that's new, and that person may or may not have a turn sitting at the higher table. There will be an opportunity to decide who gets to sit at the NNPBC board table. So 2 members will have a position there. We will be required to meet 6 to 8 times per year as per our historical usual. And we will manage a small budget. That budget will be operational in that will allow us to hold our meetings regularly, and projects will be decided on at that table to be proposed to the bigger table. This is huge. It's a very people are wondering if we're going to lose our autonomy and our strength and our power, and are worried about losing our own identity at this table, and that, I can assure you, is totally inaccurate. We will be equal at the table, and we'll have an opportunity to work on some pretty amazing things. At this point, next slide, please. This is an invitation to everyone to join us in providing feedback, becoming involved. There's an opportunity to request a consultation in your area. Somebody will come and speak to a larger small group, depending on what you can pull together, to go over this. And you're certainly welcome always to share the opportunity to view this webinar once it's posted again on the NNPBC site. We just want to hear from you. We want you to become involved. Your association remains your association, and we want to hear your voice. Next slide.
So I think I feel like a bookend. I was at the beginning of this webinar, and now I'm at the end of it. I think we're going to open it up to questions now, and I'll leave that up to the spokesperson for this webinar to flick the switches.
Yep, absolutely, everyone. So recognizing that it can take a couple of seconds for questions to filter in, we'll keep the line open and make sure that there's ample time to ask those questions. We'll just keep this last slide up on the screen as well, just so you know, so you can take opportunity to mark down the pages, the Twitter feed, the Facebook links, whatever sort of brand of social media and online connection you like. So we'll go ahead and hold it for there now. And please don't hesitate to ask some questions, and I will read them as they come in. Again, just keeping in mind, we want to keep a few beats of time, as it can take just a couple of seconds for those questions to populate.
Well, I'll take advantage of this moment. I was just wanting to say for all of our listeners that are on there, and if you could please talk it up, but we would love, since you've engaged today, is to also come to our AGM. As you've heard, this will be our last AGM as LPN ABC, so it's quite historic, being that we've been in existence underneath the current I would say the logo, or that is that constitution, is that we're going to be having it on March the 26th. It will be from 2 o'clock till 4:30, if I remember the time. It's already up on our website, and we would love for you to sign up. It's going to be held at Central City. So we want to thank for Fraser Health for allowing us to use one of their boardrooms. So that supports all of that. We would love to have people come out. That's our time to engage, and we will have refreshments and everything. So please, talk it up, and I would love for all of you to be there. And we will be, again, having Alex, who's on the phone. She's going to come and do another presentation, not probably, but as lengthy as this one, but maybe just wanted to bring forward all of the changes that were just talked about.
And we do have a question in. So I'll go ahead and read it. I'll just paraphrase it a little bit. But Brenda, this is focused on some of the information you were speaking about a few minutes ago with respect to the council structure. And the question is with respect to ensuring that the voice, as it were, of each profession not being lost. This person is saying LPNs are not as numerous as RNs, which of course we know. So understand that there is equal representation on the board structure. You ensure that LPN issues will come to that board table. And that's not specifically for you, Brenda, but they were saying it alludes back to what you were talking about, so for anyone to answer.
Absolutely. I feel like I get this question a lot about how are we going to ensure that in the great pool of all of the RNs, RPNs, and NPs, that our little LPN numbers don't get trod upon. We often, in our workplace, we have a reputation of being the workhorse, and we are often given direction, and we're very hardworking, we're task oriented, we get a lot of things done, and so, but we don't often have an opportunity to collaborate on the plan of action. I can tell you, I can assure you, after years of sitting at this table with this group of people and under these regulations that we've decided upon, that we never get shut down, that we always have an opportunity to voice our opinion. And we speak to it very clearly from what it's like for us as an LPN to be working on the team in any given environment. There are some environments, of course, that we're not working in, but at this table, I can tell you that we're advocating to be in every environment that's appropriate to our scope. And we're always working to advocate for full utilization. And I believe that we're being heard well. I think that at this particular table and with the people who engage with us, they hear that cry, and that they agree that that's a very appropriate direction. It's very necessary to the survival of our healthcare system the way it is right now. So I just want to take another moment just to assure everyone that our voice is not lost at this table. We are very confident and very competent at sitting at the table and articulating our concerns.
I have to echo that, just to come, from years of experience that not only, do we bring the LPNs concerns, needs, successes, we bring all of it together. We also have been acknowledged, from the other side that I cannot tell you how many times people said, I didn't know that. And so so they're listening and they're acknowledging it, and I'm hearing more and more is that they're inclusive of in the conversation. So no, it's been wonderful.
Can I add to this point?
Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on what Brenda said, and my cold might take my voice away, so I'll try and get this out. The future is collaboration for all healthcare. It's cost effective. It has good results. The research has proven it. This is a form of very standardized and formal collaboration. I've been amazed at how well we've been accepted. And I would just like to say that this is a very good thing for LPNs. It raises our voice, and it's kind of a one-stop shopping for any stakeholders. If you want to hear the information about the different associations and what they do, or nursing in particular, any issues that come up, we speak with one voice, not just many. And then that gets confusing for the public and for stakeholders.
I just want to add one quick little thing, because we've experienced a really unique situation at this table. We have actually, at one point, been well, more than one point, but I can speak specifically to one, where we were the leaders on a project, and it was a really refreshing perspective to actually be able to be the ones who were guiding the work of the associations.
Wonderful, thank you. We do have another question in. This is a very good question, one we haven't heard a lot about, and the question is about dual registrants. Those that may hold dual designations, where do they fit in, and can you be both, quote unquote, in this new association?
Okay, so I'll take that one on. Yes, there is, we know that there's registered nurses who also work as licensed practical nurses, or we have psychiatric nurses working as registered nurses. We have multiple, and yes, they can be dual registrants. And the value added for that is that they are able to vote for each of their council designations that they hold. So if you are wearing the two hats of LPN, RN, you can be also attending the LPN council, and you can be attending the RN council. So you, at that point, based on just holding the two designations, can be at both seats, yes.
Great. And another question in about the name. And this person says that they're not objecting to the name by any stretch of the imagination, but would like to hear a little bit more about some of the other names that maybe were considered, and or some details about how the decision was arrived at. Appreciate that this was long, hard decision making, but can you speak a little bit more about how the group came to the decision to use this particular name?
I think that, oh, go ahead.
No, you go right ahead, Anita, go ahead.
Right, because Brenda and I both were sitting at these tables for quite some time, and it was a long, there's so many pieces to how is that we had, flip charts up on the backboard. We had nurses of BC, because we were trying to also be looking at, doctors of BC, nurses of BC. Then we realized that actually it's not their formal name, they're still the medical council. we looked at, the acronyms and how would that land. I think that there was one acronym that did not sit well. So we said, okay, because even just getting an acronym that was, easy to pronounce as well as moving it forward, and then just securing that domain was another piece. We actually secured, I think it was like 5, that before we can come down. Then it came down to, nurses, of British Columbia, or Nursing Association of British Columbia. And then the nurse practitioners were bringing forward saying, that they, as I had mentioned before, bring it back is that when they register, they are their own identity. And then we looked at the College of Physicians and Surgeons. We recognized that they are all physicians, but there is identity in their specialty. So I think out of respect that if we go forward and with much consideration, we were saying that yes, nurse practitioners need at this point in time, just based on multiple needs, was needing to have a recognition for their higher standings. We know we've heard back from the clinical nurse specialists, the CNSs, that they felt that they have their specialty in masters. This is true, and it's not that that's off the table, and we definitely want to, as we've said multiple times, we want to bring that back. But nurse practitioners is their own designation, and they do have a unique role in being able to admit and discharge and prescribe, whereas the other masters, even they do hold educational and specialties, they don't have those rights, which is given by legislation. So in legislature, they do have, the nurse practitioners have that higher level. So we want to be able to support that at this point in time. Is there anything for Brenda, do you want to add to that since you were part of this debate too?
Yeah, I just want to go back to the very thing that struck me as the most basic, which was when we approach a patient at a bedside, whether you're an LPN or an RPN or an RN, you approach the person and say, I'm your nurse today. And when the nurse practitioner approaches a patient, they have, I believe they're legally bound to say that they're a nurse practitioner. And so the identity is, to me, it just made sense. It was very clear that they needed to be acknowledged at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good question.
Yeah, good questions. There is another one in, actually, another really good question. This one harkens back to the governance model that we had on the screen just a couple minutes ago. And the question is with respect to the patient representation. How come only one patient rep? Would this be better served with more patients on the board?
I know if the ministry was to have, because they were saying, have one, it's that, tokened one. I think at this point in time, the board reviewed, that we don't want to get, because we could be having a quite a large board, and we know that having large boards by evidence-based is not successful. We do need to keep that the size of the board. It has to be functionable, and it has to be making sure that it's not too much of overly bureaucratic. So the point was that we do need to, we are nurses, we are to serve the people, to have the patient rep, but there is a patient advisory group that we feel strong enough that we will have a really good connection to the advisory group that will be able to, then the one person that will be coming to the larger group will be bringing the voice of many, not just of one entity. Again, as we're going forward, we'll be looking at these seats, but we feel that one was a good step forward because it's not been done before.
Anyone else have anything to add? Brenda, Michael?
No, I think that covered it. That was pretty comprehensive.
Okay.
I think the fact that this board is this is the starting point, and that there's opportunity for growth or change or adjustment. There will be regular review of operations, and successes will be noted, as well as things that are not so successful. So it's a work in progress, and we're well aware of that and very committed to it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it's the commitment that, with any new organization, there's going to be a lot of dialogue to review and make sure the process to get to where we are now, what you have just seen the presentation, we've had a formal consultation. We've got Deloitte & Touche, who's been involved in large mergers of corporations, who's been giving us very extensive support in through, making sure that we are, looking at it from multiple angles. So again, but we're always knowing that this is a living process that we will be looking at.
I just wanted to add, unfortunately, my battery is going on my phone, so I'm going to have to sign off now. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm glad I was a successful bookend. Anyways, Anita and Brenda.
Thanks, Michael.
Anita and Brenda, I'll talk to you later. Hello to everyone out there who's listening. It was very good information. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
We do have another question in. I'm just going to give it a second. I'm not sure if this system does the beep beep thing when someone leaves, so no, it doesn't sound like it. I didn't want to get cut off by beep beep there. So there's a question around consultation process. Who have you consulted with thus far?
Oh, wow. Well, I know that we've consulted with all the members from all the designations. We've been doing this webinar for quite a while, and we've been going around the province. I know that Alex and I had the wonderful opportunity to go up to Prince George just recently, and we did a consultation up there that was not the first ones. And I know that currently they've spoken over to 2,000 nurses. And I know when we mentioned that, knowing that David Byers did a comprehensive report, and he only spoke to, I think it was 13 or 1,500 nurses. So we've well exceeded, and we're still continuing them on. That's why we wanted to up until, even past that. So we've been constantly talking to all designations. The nurse practitioners held their webinar. We held ours. The psychiatric nurses did theirs. Just recently, I know that they were up in Penticton. So we've been doing quite a bit for the last few months.
Yeah, absolutely. So Anita, I'll just jump in there. Each of the regions has been targeted through the town hall structure. Anita mentioned the town hall we did in Prince George. We've hit all the major regions. And then there's been a variety of meetings that have been set up sort of on a smaller scale, not quite the same town hall. We do have on the website, so that nnpbc.com that you're seeing on your screen, if you go to the tab, it's the consultations in your area tab, you'll see that if you scroll down and if you click, there's a link to past events as well. That lists the places that we have been. It shows the webinars. We've done 4 webinars to date. There'll be another one in March, so there's still more opportunity. We've got a survey on the website. We've got multimodal ways of engaging with us to be sure the information is out there. So loads and loads of consultation opportunities. Anything to add? Did I forget anything there?
No, I think that what I find when you go out there, for the consultations and to continue it on, it's definitely something that we're committed to doing on a constant basis, to be connected, because that's what the association is all about, is to finding out. So, just to be able to ask any, to find out what do you feel, what needs to be done. I do want to give a shout out to the AGM, because that's what we want to know, is what does the LPN Council want to look at? Do we need to broaden our board, as we go forward, or do we need to have, the same? So that would be wonderful. It's this invitation to everybody. So I think that would be great.
Absolutely. And I'm not seeing any more questions at this point. I do want to give it just a couple of beats. I'm always very conscious of technology being bratty sometimes, and there being little lags. So I don't want to cut things off just yet, but it looks like we're at the end of the question list there. In case, just in case, we'll give it another couple of minutes. And again, as noted, just while we're giving it those couple of minutes, Anita mentioned this as well. This webinar will be posted You are more than welcome to share them. You'll be able to share the pages on which the webinars are linked, and anyone can go through this. The webinar that's coming up for the 21st of March, not designation specific. All of the professional associations have run through webinars for specific designations, but we welcome any and all. So if you know, there's someone you feel that hasn't been able to attend today that you'd like to see come to that, by all means, you will find that link on the site, on the nnpbc.com website, and we would love to have you. So please don't be shy. You can attend any and all of these as you'd like. And with that, so Anita, I'm not seeing questions. We're at 4:49. So I think, and again, I'm just buying a little bit of time here to give it a couple of beats. I think we can say thank you to everyone who has joined. We appreciate and respect the time that you've taken to do this with us. And I think we can go ahead and say good night. Anita, if you'd like to just say final good night to everyone.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. I just wanted to note that, and thank you, Alex, for holding this, and Brenda. And I know Michael's already signed up, but I've already been texting him and thanking him. Sorry you couldn't hear Jennifer's voice, but I do want you to know that we are working very hard. We have been for continual. There's never been any lapse in our dedication to our profession. And I'm currently in sunny Comox right now. So I just wanted you to know that, you know, being in another health authority, working at another hospital, I've met some amazing LPNs over here. Try to, you know, as I'm connecting and talking to them, it's just been a joy. I've working with the people over on the island. And so I just want to thank all of you for taking the time. I know our time is always so precious, so I just want to thank all of you for taking the time and being engaged in this. And please go to the website and sign up if you haven't for our AGM, and we look forward to seeing everybody.